Hey guys, it's Omer from MMOs.com. I'm doing another quick weekly news recap of all major MMO news and announcements for the week ending December 16th, 2019. This is episode number 225 of the recap, and the first of news this week is a big one. A brand new isometric MMORPG was announced for the PC this week called Corepunk, and looks to be the real deal. A legit new PC MMORPG being developed by a large team of about 100 people. It looks like a bit like Path of Exile or Diablo, but it builds itself as an actual MMORPG and promises a seamless open world, crafting, branching quest lines, and more. It's being developed by the Dutch gaming studio MaxBuff, and is expected to launch into open beta sometime in Q4 of 2020. So it's still about a year or so away. Nowhere on the game's business model just yet, but according to the developer's own website, they said they specifically aren't a fan of pay to win, but then again, who openly admits that they are? Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited. We rarely get a brand new PC MMORPG that's the real deal. And it's from a real company, and I think it's actually going to come out relatively soon as well. I mean, Q4 2020 seems far away, but for a full-blown MMORPG, it's not too bad. Plus, I actually like the look of Corepunk as well, but then again, I do tend to like isometric games. Next up, Amazon Game Studios finally set a release date for their upcoming Persistent World Survival MMO New World, and set to launch in May 2020, and will be available on Steam as a buy-to-play title. And we can pre-order the game right now for $39.99 and $49.99 for the deluxe version. Close beta is set to begin about 1 month before launch as well in April. Interestingly, they did make some huge changes to the game. Players will now need to opt into PvP, so by default PvP is off, and the entire game can be played in PvE mode, which is radically different than earlier alphas. Time will tell if New World will succeed where other games have failed, but I do like the concept of an MMO with an open world sandbox elements. Plus, they got the big bucks being backed by Amazon, so who knows, maybe they can do it. Though it is a pretty big radical change to go from opt-in PvP, which they have now, versus the full like Rust style or Ark style game they had before. So I'm curious to see how that ends up working out for the game. But again, release date of May 2020. Next, we have yet another big announcement this week. Perfect World unveiled the first ever Magic Legends trailer this last week at the Game Awards show, which will be an MMORPG based on the Magic the Gathering franchise. The game has been in development by Cryptic Studios since 2017, and this is the first time we're seeing any kind of trailer about it. But unfortunately, we aren't seeing any kind of gameplay just yet, just a cinematic trailer in the background. We can expect to learn more about it in the coming months, as the game is already opening itself up to pre-registrations for the first round of beta testing. Keep in mind, though, that even though this game is being published by Perfect World, it is developed by their own development studio, Cryptic Studios, the same company behind Neverwinter, Star Trek Online, and Champions Online. And I do like Neverwinter myself, so I'm kind of optimistic about this one. Unfortunately, nowhere on the game's business model just yet, but given that it's by Cryptic and Perfect World, I suspect it'll be free to play because all the other games are free to play. And I'm sure more details will come out for Magic Legends in the near future. Next up, we have a big update for MapleStory 2. Next on, revealed the Critias expansion for the game, which increased the game's level cap to 99, adds new skills, new level 70 pets, and the new Critias floating continent, which features new zones, exploration goals, dungeons, new raids, and more. It's a big update to the game. It'll be rolling out in phases, with the first phase already live as of December 11th. It's an absolute huge update for the game, so check out those full patch notes on the official MapleStory 2 website if you're interested. While the game's player base has definitely declined since launch, and a lot of the hype has already died down, the game still has a pretty decent sized player base, though MapleStory 1 still has a much bigger player base than MapleStory 2. Up next, Final Fantasy XIV launched patch 5.15 this last week, which introduced a new PvP frontline map, as well as new Blue Mage content. Most importantly, the Blue Mage level cap has been increased from 50 to 60, which of course includes a new bunch of new Blue Mage skills and other goodies. Players are also encouraged to complete old content in a party of Blue Mages, which is an interesting way to get players to experience old content again, especially since Blue Mages are capped at level 60 versus 80 for other classes. Other goodies in 5.15 are a new mount, a new minion, new crafting recipes, achievements, and more. Next up, WarFrame launched the Empyrean update this last week, on the day of the Game Awards actually. Now, Empyrean introduces Railjack, new Warframe powers, and more. The Railjack element is a core part of the update, and will be the centerpiece of all future Empyrean missions as well. Warframe remains one of the most popular free-to-play games in the West, regularly averaging over 43,000 concurrent players online at any given time on Steam alone. If you haven't played this one yet, it's definitely well worth checking out. Up next, Black Desert Mobile officially launched globally in English this last week on both iOS and Android. The game has been a hit in South Korea and Japan, and is finally available worldwide. Perlebase is clearly pushing the game hard, as they offered anyone who pre-registered for the game a free copy of the PC version, plus they also advertised the game at the Game Awards and plenty of other places as well. I've played the game a bit already, and just a heads up guys, the first few hours will be doing nothing but autopathing, but the combat does feel rewarding. But like other mobile games, it does have autoplay elements. Given how many Korean MMORPGs have flopped in the West, I'm curious to see if Black Desert Mobile can succeed where others have failed. I mean, visually the game looks good, appearance customization in the game looks good, but it plays so much like other Korean mobile MMORPGs with those autoplay elements. And speaking of Pearl Abyss, the company revealed new information about Crimson Desert. The game was first revealed last month and stands alone as its own distinct game, with entirely new worldviews, religions, characters, and more apart from Black Desert. But it will have a few in-game identifiable homages to Black Desert. Crimson Desert will also have an immersive single-player campaign, along with the more traditional MMORPG content. According to Prolerbis, the game's storyline revolves around Macduff, son of Martinus, and the leader of a band of mercenaries. And apparently, Crimson Desert tells the story of many different characters whose fates are intertwined with the main character and his band of mercenaries. There's a lot not quite known about Crimson Desert just yet, but I suspect we'll be learning more in the coming months. It is interesting to see a lot of single-player content in an MMORPG though, but you'll have both MMORPG and the story-driven single-player content in the same game. Next up, sci-fi fantasy MMORPG SkyForge is getting a new adventure and a new Elder God form when the Rock and Metal expansion launches on December 17th. The new Elder God form is accessible to archers, outlaws, and gunners. The Rock and Metal expansion goes live on December 17th for PC, December 18th for PS4, and December 19th for Xbox One. Now, SkyForge kind of fell off the radar on the PC for many, but it remains fairly popular on consoles. Up next, Starvault officially unveiled Mortal Online 2, which is a sequel to the original game. It promises a more realistic game world, full PvP and full loot, and a maximum of 1 character per account. Lifetime subscribers to the first game will carry over into the sequel as well. Like many other old school games like RuneScape and Ultima Online, Mortal Online 2 features no classes or levels for its progression. Instead, it is a complex skill system where players can work on the skills they want and level up, or rather progress the skills they want. A closed combat alpha is scheduled for Q2 of 2020, with a Steam Early Access later in 2020. Now, while Mortal Online 2 will definitely be a niche game given its emphasis on PvP and full loot mechanics, it's still nice to see these kinds of niche games in a world where so many games end up feeling like clones of each other, so at least they're doing something a little bit different. Next up, Astro Creation Apocalypse. Remember that game? Well, it's basically dead already. The game only averages 9 or so players online at a given time on Steam charts. Well, and actually, that's actually 8.6. We're being generous and rounding up to 9. And I imagine most of those are the devs themselves leaving the games logged in. Given that it's a battle royale game, it doesn't have nearly as many players required to get a single game going. Now, I don't think this should really come as a big surprise to anyone, as the game launched prior in a different round of beta and just nobody really played the game. So I'm curious why they thought relaunching the game again is going to bring more players to the game. My guess is this will be shut down pretty soon because it doesn't look good for Intrepid to have this game that absolutely nobody plays on Steam. So I suspect they'll probably be pulling it from the store soon. Up next, Blizzard launched Ultrak Valley and Warzone Gulch for World of Warcraft Classic this last week, and it's getting a lot of players excited. I actually have 2 friends that quit their jobs so they can play PvP and WoW Classic all day long, so perhaps excited is an understatement. The honor system along with Battlegrounds are finally in the game, and many players are competing to become a High Warlord and Grand Marshal, so a lot of players are definitely going ham. Next up, GameGo's free-to-play tactical shooter Iron Sight is launching on Steam on December 18th, along with a big content update. The Steam launch coincides with the game's official open beta launch, which includes 2 new maps, a capture the flag mode, and some new skins. Iron Sight is yet another lobby-based Korean shooter that competes with Black Squad, Combat Arms, and those kinds of games. Though it's been much harder for these kinds of games to compete lately, as CSGO is free-to-play. Anyway, Iron Sight is launching on Steam on December 18th for those interested. Up next, some news for Astellia, though not the buy-to-play Western version, but the free-to-play Korean version. So the Korean version of the game announced to be shutting down in early 2020, January 16th to be precise. While this won't affect the buy-to-play global English version, it's never a good sign when your game shuts down in its home market. With the Korean version gone, the Western version can still survive if it has a large enough player base, but typically when a game fails in one region, it's a signal that there's something maybe wrong with that game, and other regions might run into those same issues later on, so it's definitely not a good sign that Astellia shut down in South Korea, or is shutting down in South Korea. And again, nothing's going on with the Western version just yet, just something to keep in mind. Next and last of news this week comes from Dauntless, which launched on the Nintendo Switch with full cross-platform support. So anyone who plays the game on Switch can play with others, whether they're on PC, Xbox, or PS4. Plus, the game also launched for the first time in Japan, which expanded the game's already large 15 million plus registered player base. The game's Storm Chaser update also launched this last week, which is the biggest update for the game since open beta began last year. Storm Chaser introduces the new Escalation game mode, which features dual behemoth encounters, and new sequential hunt with roguelike elements. If you haven't played Dauntless yet, it's worth checking out. It's basically a free-to-play Monster Hunter game. Anyway, guys, that's it for MMO News this week. I'll see you guys next week. Later, guys.